Okay. All right, good evening, everybody. This is the December 9th Public Safety Special Meeting. Um, and we have council members Jim Frayer, Nicole Eady, Heather Dunn, Josh Goldstein, and myself, Jalen Seed. We're also joined by, just for the record, Steve Mednick, Jeff Spar, um, Tom Livingston, and Melissa Lepore. And then that takes care of the roll call. And then we can open it up to public participation.
If anybody would like to speak, can you please raise your hand electronically and I'll unmute you? It doesn't appear so. I'm going to bring I think it's like Mario Capola might be on. I'm going to bring him over as a panelist.
Okay.
You don't need to. I mean,
You want me to leave? Okay.
All right. So then we go to the acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting from October 24th. Have a motion? Have Heather done? Is there any changes or corrections that need to take place? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? And then I just abstain just because I wasn't there. Then we go to new business. Have item A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an extension agreement with Fleet Auto Supply under RFP project number 4123 for the upfit of police vehicles until February 27th, 2026, and the amount not to exceed $275,000 per year. And I turn that over to you.
Jillian, you gotta ask for a motion.
Oh, could I have a motion? I'm sorry. Thanks a lot, Josh. We have Jim Frayer. Thanks a lot, Jim.
Good evening, members. I thank you for having this special meeting for us also. The city of Norwalk is currently in agreement with Fleet Auto Supply for the upfit of the services for police vehicles. The upfit entails supplying, installing, repair, and replacing all the required emergency equipment for our new police vehicles. That includes everything from lights to radios to the mounting equipment to the decals, everything that comes inside the car. The prisoner compartment, the cages, and whatever we need to upfit any police car when they come from the dealership. So the agreement was entered back in May of 2022 and is in effect until February of 28th of 2025 with the option of an extension for 2 additional 1-year renewals. The agreement also includes compensation for services up to $200,000 with 0 cents per subject per unit per year. In accordance with Section 4 of the agreement, the police department is requesting to invoke the option for an extension of 1 year at this time. The agreement shall have same terms and condition as the initial term, with the extension period commencing on March 1st of 2025 and then concluding February 27th of 2026. For the compensation paragraph, section 3, paragraph A, the police department is requesting to increase that sum from $200,000 to $275,000 based on unit pricing and the availability of funds. So the increase is due to supply costs, everything that obviously this was in effect from 3 years ago and the bidding had gone out. The RFPs had gone out in December of 2021 for the 2022 year. So it is fairly old, and we have some police Accountability Act mandates that are now required with dashboard cameras and a little bit more electronics and technology upgrades. So that would be where we're requesting the increase when we have funds available for that. And not all cars get all that, each one. So when we have administrative cars, they don't have all the decals and everything like that. So the number, it fluctuates between vehicles. The Mark Patrol units that you see all the officers using, those have everything from soup to nuts. Administrative vehicles like for detectives or any other administrative units, they have less. So they'll have, just dashboard lights or low profile lights. They'll still have the radios, but they don't always have like all the computer equipment and some more technology like a traffic enforcement vehicle would have. So that price will fluctuate per vehicle.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. We have any questions for the Deputy Chief? If not, all in favor? It passes unanimously.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have one more item for the police. We have item B, authorized purchase agent Sharon Connors to execute the purchase orders on behalf of Norwalk Police Department to Fleet Auto Supply on the RFP project number 4123 for the outfit of police vehicles based on unit pricing and availability of the funds not to exceed 275,000. We should have did this together. So sorry. So we have anything else you want to add to that, Deputy Chief, or it's pretty much self-explanatory?
No, okay, unless anybody has any questions.
We have none, so all in,
Wait,
oh, we have a motion?
actually, since you called them separately, I will make a motion in favor of the item.
Okay, thank you. And then again, I give anybody like one more chance to ask any questions. Hearing none, all in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you, Deputy Chief Lepore, and thanks to the Norwalk PD for everything that you guys do.
Thank you,
Really
guys.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And then we have item C. This is to authorize the arrangement for corporation counsel position to be changed from an employee to a contract, and to authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with Birchman Moses PC to provide legal services and representation for the city of Norwalk. Do I have a motion? Have Josh Goldstein. And then I turn it over to Ms. Tina Fogel.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. So we're making a recommendation to switch from our current process, which is a part-time salaried employee of the city of Norwalk for our corporation counsel, to enter into a contracted service so that we are able to utilize the firm of Birchman Moses. We believe that this is the right move for the city based on a number of different issues. As you know, the city continues to grow and become much more diversified. Obviously, we have a large number of different specialized kind of matters, and we believe that this would allow us to have a greater bench, so to speak, and access to legal services. Our current staff for the Corporation Counsel will remain. Deputy Corporation Counsel Jeff Spar is here, as well as the Assistant Corporation Counsels. It would be the Corporation Counsel position, and then there's one Assistant Corporation Counsel position that's transferring over into this. So at this point, like I said, we believe it's more cost efficient and it would give the city a greater kind of bandwidth. And to talk about the process, I'd like to turn it over to Attorney Steve Medic, who is outside counsel, who was involved in the RFP and selection process.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Tina. I was asked to assist the purchasing office and the city in general in the RFQ process. But the first hurdle that we had to deal with was whether or not this was permissible under the charter. And as you know, we did a charter revision last year. And under the charter, the Corporation Counsel is not a department head. The Corporation Counsel has administrative responsibilities is the administrative head and not a defined department head under the charter. And the Corp Counsel is also appointed by the mayor with no confirmation proceeding and serves at the pleasure of the mayor. In that way is distinguishable from all other department heads in the city. And so the charter gives the flexibility to hire a firm, although you need to designate somebody in the firm to serve as the Corporation Counsel. It doesn't wed the position to a employee position, full-time or part-time employee position. As a practical matter, this development is not unusual. This is kind of the norm in Fairfield County. It's the norm in, I will point out that Danbury has an in-house component, but they have a relationship with an outside firm. Fairfield has not had an in-house component for some time, simply operates with a full-time, an outside contractor. Greenwich is kind of a hybrid, similar to what Norwalk would be, with an in-house component and an outside law firm that works with them. The same can be said outside of Fairfield County in some of the smaller communities in Stratford, Shelton, Trumbull, and then you get down to the smaller towns. It's Westport is also included in that. Westport's a pretty small town though, 27,000 people. It's pretty classic in the small communities to have outside counsel that's retained for a period of time by a first selectman and a board of selectmen. You're now beginning to see this development in some of the larger communities. One of the general issues that is being faced by cities and towns, and you're very lucky to have somebody like Jeff Spar, who's been with the community for a long period of time, is just finding and retaining in-house counsel. And so my general recommendation to most of my cities is I think that for a larger city, having a very strong internal presence in a corporation the size of Norwalk is critical and important. And a full contracting out approach would not make a lot of sense. What they're doing here is a hybrid to take full advantage of the current corporation counsel. Turns out the current corporation counsel competed in the RFQ process, but you get to retain the corp counsel with the benefits of their the remaining members of the firm. That allows for a little more flexibility within caps within the contract to be able to deal with some of the niche issues that you would otherwise have to go outside for. And so I think it's really it's an entirely appropriate and legal approach, and as a practical matter, can work within the community itself. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any at some point this evening.
All right, any questions? Mr. Freyer?
I just had one question on the economics of it. And I can see the need or the benefit of having an outside counsel take over the general counsel's job. But on the economics of it, the other bidder, was there, I guess there was only 2 bids? Okay, so the other bid,
There were only 2 bids, that's correct.
right. So Rose Callor, I guess it was, they didn't suggest a retainer, whereas the selected bidder did have a retainer or suggested a retainer of about 15,000. And I also noticed that the rates that Rose Keller was charging were somewhat less than the award winner or the firm that was awarded. How do we take a look at the economics of that and say this is a good deal, assuming that both law firms were equally qualified, unless maybe Rose Keller was totally unqualified, and that's the reason we swung it that way.
Thank you. It's a great question. I was not. I think it was stated that I was part of the selection process. I was part of the drafting the RFP process, so I was not there during the consideration. I don't know if Tina has any information based on purchasing, or I don't think we have purchasing here, or whether Tom Livingston would have any direct knowledge on that.
I was not part of the selection committee, but Mr. Livingston was, so.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
I was. So we had 2 firms. Obviously, we know Mario and his firm. The other firm was a very small firm. I think it had 6 attorneys. They were headquartered outside of Hartford. I think there's some very impressive credentials in the attorney that we met, but I think I know the consensus of the review committee was they didn't have the full strength and that we needed to for this role. Aside from the fact that there were some distance, that the breadth of their practice was not really aligned with our needs. Most particularly, they're really a litigation boutique. And so that's really not what we're looking for.
How do you explain though the retainer is 15,000 and they did not offer retainer? Do you then take a look at the number of hours that would be anticipated? That's where I'm getting hung up on this.
Why don't we, rather than me answer, Mr. Seed, maybe you can ask ask the whoever's running the meeting to bring up Jared, who is on.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna unmute him now.
He can talk to the financials better than I
Okay.
can.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Livingston. Here you're on if you unmute.
Thank you. This is Jared. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, as Tom Livingston mentioned, the 2 firms were definitely not of the same caliber. There wasn't the same breadth of experience in the same areas of law that they had available. And as far as the difference in the approaches in terms of the cost, I can't speak to why the other firm came in without a retainer option, at least. But I do know that when you compare the hourly rates, yes, they are a little bit lower, but there wasn't the type of experience that we were looking for. And the other firm was very specialized in and in particular in the area of employment law. And so it was a pretty easy decision for us to make when it came down to the selection process.
And Jim, if I could, I mean, the other firm didn't propose a retainer because they don't do all the work we needed. So they couldn't provide the broad retainer that we needed. That's why they didn't propose it.
So in this case,
One of the things that
really,
we did, if I may, one of the things we did
sure.
in the RFP, we wanted to make sure we replicated the current status of the Corporation Council as much as we could. And one of the important elements of the RFP was to make sure that whoever did apply understood that there was a substantial component of this job that would mirror what is done today, so that the Corp Council would continue to spend a big chunk of time with the mayor, with the chief of staff, with the department heads, in the way that the Corp Council presently does that. So again, I was not part of the selection process, but I would assume if I were responding, a big component of my response would have been something along the lines of a retainer, taking into account that particular aspect of the job.
Yeah, I think the reason I asked the question is somebody could just make the assumption that, we're charging, or we're going to be paying, I think it was 14.5 instead of not 15,000, although Mario's letter mentioned 15K for the retainer. But nevertheless, I think it begs the question, Rose Kohler could go out and bring some additional attorneys in on, at an associate level that would, could use up a lot of that 14.5, or not, maybe, or more than 14.5.
Well, Jim,
I just think,
well, Jim, just to be clear, I mean, we're paying, all in for Mario, I think it's $180,000. So this basically
Right.
spreads that over the 12 months.
Right, and they,
Yeah, no,
and the,
you
and
know,
the total amount of the retainer, 174,000 is less than, the total compensation when you take into account the salary as
Right.
well as any benefits to Mario as corporation counsel right now.
Yeah, and I think Tina had, in her, explanation mentioned that the total cost is gonna be less. So that's the only point that I wanted to make, because if you take a look at the numbers, it looks as if, a rose color might have been, less expensive than, appreciably less expensive than what we're paying now.
But
Okay.
I think the countervailing argument, just to make it clear, is that there's two tracks here. One is about allocation of resources, but the other is about breadth and depth of expertise. And there just only are so many firms especially in Fairfield County that do this kind of work.
Yeah.
Birch and Moses is certainly up there. Jeff, go for it.
Well, no, actually, before we do that, if I could, just to your comment about rose color hiring people, we based our review on look, and what the RFP was about was getting the capabilities of a firm so we can look at their, who they were, what their experience was. I mean, yes, they could go out and hire people, but we don't know if those people would be people we want, right? I mean, we'd have to know what we're getting, right? And we don't know. We only know the people in the firm as presented in their RFP,
That makes sense.
sponsor RFP, I should say.
Mhm.
Then Attorney Spar?
Yes, thank you. So one of the things is it comes from time to time, due to particular conflicts of interest or whatever, that we have to bring in outside counsel. And we in the past have brought in Birch and Moses on a number of occasions, and I've had the, pleasant experience actually of working with a number of the attorneys at Birch and Moses. As a matter of fact, even to this day, because I know them, I will sometimes call up when I have an esoteric area of law that I'm not really too sure about, and I'll speak to them. And that's really good. The other thing too is because of their location, they are located in Milford, but they're also located down in Westport. And so what you'll find is that their firm in Westport and their attorneys will have a chance to appear many times in front of the Stamford court or the Bridgeport court. In Norwalk, we could be sued really in either this, we get lawsuits, mostly to Stamford, but sometimes Bridgeport. But it's good to get to know who the judges are and the whole process and stuff like that. And not only that, maybe as important as the attorneys getting to know the judges is the judges getting to know the attorneys and to build that trust up. So I think there's a very good efficiency as far as that's concerned as well.
That's a great point, because Connecticut has a venue statute just for non-lawyers, where any case that can be brought in Stamford can also be brought in Bridgeport. And that's what Jeff's referring to.
Mhm. Right.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Have any more questions or comments? And then just a note, like Mr. Attorney Megnick has said, it's actually not just there's some of the taxing districts actually have went to the contract. Like the first taxing district, we went to it's a contract, so they don't have an in-house attorney, and it did save on costs and does provide a lot of benefits like I spoke about today. So if there's no more comments or questions, take a vote. All in favor? Okay, and that passes unanimously. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your help.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then we do these together. We have item D, salary recommendation for the registrar of voters and deputy registrar of voters. 1, pursuant to Chapter 1, Section 6.2 of the Charter of the City of Norwalk, effective upon the commencement of the next term of office of the registrar of voters, the Common Council fixes the salary of the registrar of voters at $79,000 annually, and hereby orders the city clerk to updated appendix part 7 of chapter 131, section 3 of the code of the city of Norwalk to reflect this salary. And item 2, pursuant to chapter 1, section 6.2 of the charter of the city of Norwalk, effective upon commencement of the next term of office of deputy registrar of voters, the Common Council fixes the salary of deputy registrar of voters at $70,000 annually, and hereby orders the city clerk to updated appendix part 7 of chapter 131, section 3 of the code of the city of Norwalk to reflect this salary. Do we have a motion? Hi, Mr. Freyer. We turn it back over to you, Ms. Vogel.
Good evening. Thank you again. So we're making this recommendation, to increase the salary for the registrar of voters and the deputy registrar of voters based on some salary surveys that we have been doing. And many of you know, our ordinance positions, which this is technically considered an ordinance position, our elected officials are, we have an ordinance salary, we call it a non-unit benefits and compensation plan. Is set by this committee and then obviously then with approval from the Common Council. And over the course of the last several years, when we've updated that ordinance pay plan, the registrar of voters and deputy registrar of voters salaries have not changed. And so the only changes that these two positions have gotten is the increase that is connected to a collective bargaining agreement. This group follows the NASA, the Norwalk Assistant Supervisors Association, and this last year was 2.35%. So that's the only increase that this position has had in a very long time. Obviously, since 2020, there are a large number of changes that have been made to the election process, including, early voting, absentee voting, just the number of primaries, the number of elections, polling places, et cetera. And so with that increased workload and expanded responsibility, we felt that this was the appropriate way to go. We did do as I mentioned, a salary survey. We looked at similar municipalities, size-wise, as well as because some registrar voters are part-time, so we obviously are full-time. So we looked at that and the data that we could pull, because the way CCM, the Connecticut Commission on Municipalities, it was 24 FY, so about a year and a half later than we would be. So we took that data and we made a decision to recommend, as we mentioned, 79,000 for the registrar of voters and 70,000 for the deputy registrar of voters. I don't know if there's any other questions, but we kind of went through the process to look at what other cities and towns were paying, the hours, the duties, and we felt that this was the right move based on, as I mentioned, the extended responsibilities and workload that's come, especially over the last 4 years.
Especially this year with early voting taking
Yes.
place. So.
I'm sorry, I meant to mention that. I apologize. Yes.
No problem. Do we have any questions or comments? No, it's too easy. All in favor? And that passes unanimously. So that's the last one. Before we take the last motion, just want to thank everybody on the Norwalk Police Department, the Fire Department, Corporation Council, and everybody in just general government for everything you guys have done this year, helping the city just run smoothly. And want to wish everybody a happy holidays.
Can I just make one clarification? I'm sorry. To go
Yes.
back to the thing, technically speaking, we didn't retain Bertram Moses in the past. They were retained through Kerma, but I worked side by side with the attorney. So I just wanted to make that clear. There was no direct hire. It was through Kerma. That's all I wanted to put on the record.
Okay. Thank you, Attorney Spar.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else, we take the last motion. We
Motion
have-
adjourned.
That goes. So everybody have a good night and we see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you
Good
so
night.
much.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
all.